Welcome everybody to the ThunderQuack Patreon Roundtable, and this is the first one I think of 2016. The last time we had a roundtable, it was Star Wars. If you didn't catch that one, you should definitely check it out. I am going to be one of your hosts today. My name is Kurtis Findlay, and I run the podcast. What's it called? Oh, I forgot now. The Pullbox Podcast, and in that podcast we talk about comics, we read comics, we talk about them, new stuff, old stuff, great stuff, some not so great stuff, but it's really, really great. So I encourage you to check that out at pullboxpodcast.com and listen to our sort of monthly episodes. And my other co-host is Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Hey, what's up?
Tell us who you are and why you're here.
My name is Paul Gann. I am with the Talking Time Lords podcast here on the ThunderQuack Network. We talk about classic and new Doctor Who. And so if you're interested in Doctor Who, give us a check out. We'll be more than happy to have you.
And who else is here? We have Andy. Andy, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Andy B. I don't host a show on the ThunderQuack Network, but I do help out with some of the social media, so hopefully that counts for something. But otherwise, I do host a show called The Flash Podcast, which, is sort of like a sister bro podcast to the Quiver Podcast on the ThunderQuack Network, so hopefully that counts. But yeah, otherwise, I'm just a boring guy that just does the social media.
Well, we're happy to have you here, both of you guys. Today we're talking about Jessica Jones, which is the second Netflix show that Marvel has put out, the first one being Daredevil, which Paul and I got to talk about last time. When was that? Like May or June or something?
It was, I want to say 3 weeks after it came out, maybe 4.
And when it came out in April, right?
Yeah, I take that back. We did it at the first week in June.
Okay, so it's been a good...
The reason I remember that is because Jason and I recorded our first episode the last week in May, and then the very next episode that I recorded was with you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's been 6 or 7 months, and it's good to talk about these shows again because Jessica Jones was quite a good follow-up to Daredevil, I think. First of all, we'll say that there's going to be lots of spoilers here, so if you haven't watched Jessica Jones, you may want to just put a pause on this and come back to it after you've watched it. But I'm guessing that you're here listening to us now because you've already watched it. So let's give a quick synopsis of the show, and then we'll get into our thoughts. Do either of you want to jump in and say give us a brief description of what this show is about? Andy, you want to tell us?
Sure. Well, Jessica Jones is about a former superhero named Jessica Jones who she went through something horrible thanks to a man called Kilgrave, and now she's suffering from PTSD, and she is running her own investigation. What's it called? An investigation company or something?
Alias Investigation.
Alias Investigation. But she has to. But then when Kilgrave starts to return into her life, she has to deal with those repercussions, and while also having the PTSD, and it's a roller coaster throughout this first season.
Yeah, it sure is. Roller coaster is the way to say it. Let's see. So the comic book that this is based off, the Marvel comic, is called Alias, and they named it after her investigation because that's kind of what the show was about. It's about her investigations, and then. I mean, that's what the comic is about, and then it kind of gets into her life and Kilgrave and all that, and then I guess when they brought it to Netflix, there's already a show called Alias, so they didn't want to call it Alias, and they were going to call it also known as Jessica Jones, aka Jessica Jones, but they dropped the AKA, which I think is probably for the best. It just comic books are names of people, so keep the show the name of the person too. I think that's great. Yeah, so why don't we talk about just our general thoughts on the show itself as a whole, and then we'll get into some more details about what we like about characters and what we liked about, I don't know, how it fits in with Daredevil or something else like that. But let's just give some general impressions of the show. And Paul, do you want to start us off there?
I thought it was pretty well-rounded. I really enjoyed the characters a lot. That's one thing that I can say about both of these Netflix series is they don't cheap out on the characters. They let you really get to know who these people are on multiple levels, and I think that is something that has been lacking with some of the things that we've seen in the past with some of the other outings that attempts, I should say, that comics material have tried to do on TV or movies. They just keep you on the surface level with the characters, and I like character-driven stuff. That I love character-driven stuff. I would rather watch something that is character-driven and has mediocre effects and things like that than to see something that's got blockbuster effects and just has no meat to it,
Right.
And so I love the fact that they are invested in these characters and the fact that they don't cheap out on making the thing character-driven,
Right, and well, when you have a character like Jessica Jones who tries hard not to be a superhero, she's trying her hardest to put that in the past. What's left is the character-driven part of the show, right? You don't get the big blockbuster type stuff when the character is trying not to do that.
Right, and the thing that I got from this when I watched it was that she had barely even started being a superhero when this happened to her, and so she never even truly got like a secret identity or anything like that,
Right.
It was just, I'm going to start trying to do the right thing, and then all of a sudden he comes in and just ruins her entire life, and she basically doesn't recover.
Yeah, and that is the most interesting part, is being dropped into the middle of her life, with all of that going on, and then trying to put the pieces back together as to what brought her to those events. Andy, you've been silent. You can jump in anytime. Feel free to interrupt us.
I was just waiting. No, for me, because I've known about the show since 2011, because maybe not a lot of people know this, but Jessica Jones was actually almost going to be a network show on ABC. And the creator, Melissa Rosenberg, who also did a Netflix version, she did it for ABC, and that's when it was called A.K. Jessica Jones. But the producers just felt that, the executives probably felt it was just too dark, so they didn't pick it up.
I'm sure they're kicking themselves now.
Yeah, well, not really, because ABC Studios is part of making those Netflix shows, so it's not like a huge loss for them, but it's probably a huge loss if they can't use the Netflix characters on their ABC Marvel shows. So that's when I would say, it sucks to be you. But yeah, so for me, I really love Daredevil, and seeing what Jessica Jones was going to be like, because not only was it the story about Jessica, but it was also setting up Luke Cage, and and they had I wasn't too aware of who Kilgrave was. I got most excited about him because it was David Tennant, and because I wanted to see him play a bad guy. But because I kept going back and forth between myself, wondering which one was the better series, Daredevil or Jessica Jones. And in the end, I think Jessica Jones beat Daredevil a little bit, because I do enjoy those personal stories, because with show like Daredevil, it's always about saving the city. With Arrow, it's like saving the city, and with Supergirl and Flash and all I love those type of stories. But it's also great to every once in a while just get, hey, this is just about one person, and she's in the end of the season, yes, it became about the whole city, because he tried to manifest his powers and make them bigger and bigger so he could control everybody. But in the beginning, it was just about her, what she went through, and what he did to her. So it wasn't just about, look, New York City is under attack again by a guy who just says, do what as I say.
Yeah, and she's a very selfish person. So it's not going to be about the city. It's all about her, because she is so focused on herself.
Yeah. And that was something that I thought was interesting to watch too, is how, well, hey, Star Wars comes into everything, right? They basically treated her sort of like they did Han Solo in Star Wars. She started out only focused on herself, only focused on what she could do to protect herself. She was basically running from Kilgrave from the start, and then it took her witnessing this tragic, graphic event happening to this other girl for her to feel like that it was finally time for her to get involved with somebody besides herself. And that was the catalyst of pushing her into the direction of doing the right thing, but she still wasn't 100% invested. She didn't get 100% invested until things began to escalate more and more and more and more and more, until finally she just felt like that she was the only person that could do anything to stop it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about her specifically. How did you guys? What did you guys think of the actress, the choice of actress, and her performance?
Kristen Ritter, I'd been aware of her a little bit before she got cast. I remember when it was rumored that she and the girl from the Percy Jackson movies and Jessica, the guy from Arrow and so on, were all rumored and so on. I always remember wondering, Kristen Ritter, that's an odd choice, because I was not one of those people that had seen Breaking Bad, because everyone kept hearing, once the rumor came out that she was possibly going to be Jessica, everyone was saying, oh my god, she's going to be amazing, you need to see Breaking Bad. I'm like, well, maybe someday. But when she got cast and I started seeing the trailers and just hearing her talk about the role, I was like, she's not just playing Jessica, she is Jessica Jones. And I think she did a really, really good job, and it's a very different type of superhero we're getting, also a very different female superhero. And in terms of the effect and how they used her powers and so on, it was pretty solid. The only thing I always kept going, what the hell, was the flying thing, because it was like it wasn't as if they weren't sure, are we gonna make her fly or just make her jump, because we never saw her fly completely. We just saw her jump off screen, and then
she never really had a reason to fly, though. She was never there. She didn't have a reason to fly in the show, so it makes sense that you didn't actually see that. She just needed to get from the ground to the rooftop or whatever sometimes. But yeah, I mean, in the comics she can fly, so I'm sure they were hinting at that.
Well, and we still don't know. She may continue to evolve in the show, like they've decided to take the long game with Daredevil. I feel like they're going to probably do the same thing with other characters too, which makes me think of the fact that they brought in Luke Cage on this. I love the fact that they used this show to give you a backstory on Luke Cage before his show came out.
Yeah.
As a little bitty subplot. I mean, he didn't have a huge major role in this thing, but you got to see enough of him to let you know what he was going through before his story starts.
And be excited for his story. I'm super looking forward to that. What was that actor's name? I forget.
Mike Coulter.
Yeah, he was great. I really liked him. But before we get onto those guys, let's talk a little bit more about Kristen Ritter. I just wanted to say also that I'd never even heard of her before the casting for this show. And so once I finished watching Jessica Jones, I checked out. I looked her up and saw that she was on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 43 or whatever that show's called, and it was on Netflix. So I checked out the first episode of that, and she actually plays a very similar type of character as Jessica Jones, except a comedic version rather than a dramatic version. Yeah. So it was it made sense for them to look at her in that role and then say, oh, we just take the funny out of that character and we could see her playing Jessica Jones. That makes sense. So I thought that was it was good casting, and she had just the mood and the tension that she brought to every scene was really good. She's quite good.
The role that she played in Breaking Bad was similar to the one she played in Jessica Jones, but she was nicer in Breaking Bad overall than she was in Jessica Jones. She didn't let you know that she was being nice to you, but you could pick it up. She played that kind of character that she wanted to be a nice person, but she didn't want you to know that she wanted to be a nice person. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Andy, go ahead.
I was going to say that the one thing that I was always a little bit hesitant towards before the show started was that because I knew that she was going to be a very gritty and very brooding character and so on. The thing was, because we see it in so many superheroes these days, both in film and TV, and the thing is, if you're going to do it for 13 episodes or 22 episodes, no matter how many episodes you have, you need to find a way of keeping it refreshing all the time, because otherwise it's going to get old after just 5-6 episodes. Even if you've just been watching it, it feels like it's just going by a day. But the good thing with Kristen was that she always, she always kept it fresh. It didn't feel like at some point that I was like, oh, she's just so bitter and mean and, you know, insert curse words and stuff like that. You know, she's being goofy, and you know, but she, you know, she kept it, and it was more she was more sassy as opposed to like mean or anything like that. She was just, you know, she had an attitude, but she still was a good person at heart. She would just, you know, neglect sometimes, you know, well, I can't save everybody, I can't care about everybody, I have to just care about what I have and who I have and so on. And so yeah, so she. Yeah. It didn't feel like I was following like an emo hero or something like that, because I kept seeing so many people commenting that on the internet, and you know, on the internet, there's a lot of BS on the internet, so there's no point in listening to that. But I saw a lot of people just
trolls.
Yeah, exactly. I just keep seeing people saying, "Oh, well, I'm not gonna watch Jessica Jones because she's emo." I'm like, no, she's not. She's just very protective of herself, and she's very guarded, and we understand why after Kilgrave.
Of course, and the reason why she became, or that she tried to be a hero instead of a villain, is because she's a good person, and so it's just after Kilgrave she just tried to bury that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the fact that as much as she didn't want to care about Malcolm, she couldn't help but care about Malcolm. You know, she took it upon herself to rehabilitate him because she just couldn't see somebody with that kind of potential and stuff just throw their life away, you know. And I thought that was really cool. That was another little piece of the puzzle, I think, that started pulling her back to becoming the person that she needed to be to start with.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, let's talk about Kilgrave for a little while. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, so I only know David Tennant by name. So this is my first introduction to him. Yeah, we know Paul. So I'm just gonna give my opinions first. He was such a great villain. What a menacing, creepy, kind of just mysterious guy. I really liked the way that he portrayed the character. He was a little bit funnier than he is in the comics and stuff, and the comic book character has a very long history dating back to the 60s, so he's got a few different iterations of this version. They call him the Purple Man in the comics.
Right.
Which, did you know, he's like got purple suits, and every time Jessica has these visions of him, everything turns purple in the background, and so they never called him.
By the way, I liked that they did that.
Totally, yeah, it was great because Purple Man's kind of a corny name, and this is not a corny show, so to call him Kilgrave instead was very good. I thought that his character was so interesting. But yeah, Paul, tell us what your thoughts are on David Tennant versus Doctor Who versus Kilgrave.
I like the fact that he brought just a little bit of crazy into it, you know. And what I mean by that is he literally played this like a psychopath. He had absolutely no caring for anybody, no remorse for anybody. If it did not fit his agenda, he treated people like objects, you know. One of the things that stood out for me is the scene where he told the little girl, go get in the closet, and she says, but I have to go to the bathroom, and he says, it's okay, you can do it in there. And then you see you see it come out from under the door, you know, because he made her go to the bathroom in the closet on herself, you know. Yeah. And I know that might not seem as cruel as some of the other things, like, you know, him telling somebody to jump off a building or something like that. But to me, for somebody to do that to a child and have no care, no remorse, that seemed like, I say, one of the ultimate psychopathic things that somebody could do, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the way he treated his parents, and yeah, he was definitely a crazy guy. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he, as someone who watched Prison Break and really loved the character of T-Bag on that show, like, you know, I didn't think I could ever find another character that would be crazier than that I would actually like be like, oh my god, he's the greatest character ever. And I think Kilgrave is definitely one of the best villains of the MCU, and you know, one of the few issues that the MCU has is that they have a very lacklusting set of villains other than Loki and Kingpin. Most of the other rogues has been pretty. So it was great to see that we're not just watching a Marvel product. We're seeing an amazing villain in this universe where Tony Stark exists and Captain America and all those people. And as someone who loved him as Doctor Who, and it was definitely like a 180 seeing the kind of psychotic, crazy, like bat beat crazy performance he gave. And yes, you're right. There was some humor to it too. And it's like, how do you add a comedic beat to a character who is, raping people and not thinking of as rape? Like the whole argument between him and Jessica was that she kept saying, "You ruined me mentally. You raped me," and he was like, Do you call taking you to a 5-star hotel rape? And it's like he doesn't. There's also good conversation between him and Jessica about. I think she basically said, so because no one taught you what is right and what is wrong, you just decided to go and f things up. And so it's like, it's like he's lazy basically because he never was taught about moral ground. He was like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and it's like. That kind of blows my mind, and I'm glad that they didn't go with the purple skin. I do like the purple lining though. I think that was not just a great Easter egg too that he's the purple man in the comic, but also the fact that purple is kind of an intimidating color if you think about it.
Well, now see, I kind of feel a little bit differently about the purple skin thing. I would like to have seen at the end when he got the final injection that just made him scream like in horror. I would have liked to have seen that finally give him the purple tint to his skin at the end of the thing, for the final
we
show.
saw a little bit when he got injected again. We saw it for a little second. We saw like that his upper face, the bottom of his face started to kind of go very purple.
But they didn't go all the way with it, and I personally think that would have been cool to see. Now I'm not saying that he should have looked like some kind of cartoon character or something, but I just think that for the end of it, I think that would have been cool to see, because that way you at least get to see homage paid to the comic book version of the character before they end the show.
I feel that would have been a mistake, because that's where I feel like that they would suddenly change their tone very drastically, because as we said, something called Purple Man is kind of campy, so and Jessica Jones is a very gritty show. So for suddenly and this was like in episode 12, 13 when it happened, it would be weird after 11 hours to suddenly see, now they're going with makeup and stuff like that, and he's going purple and so on. I think it was enough with the Easter egg of just like ending it here.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. I think that the show, because they downplayed the superhero bit as much as they could, it was fairly grounded in reality for the most part. I mean, there's the mind control thing. That's definitely not reality, but it still is conceivable to be in the world that we live in. Whereas if you watch Thor or the Hulk, like, that's completely different, right?
And I see that, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think that it would have been a little bit of visual payoff, to see that there was an actual change in the character right at the end, and it would have done a couple of different things. It would have given him a reason to have to hide more, because he would have then been visually different from everybody else, and so it would have given him a reason to be sort of running, to try to hide.
Well, maybe he'll come back in season 2 from the dead.
I don't know. I mean, I just know that like they did sort of something similar when they did Daredevil, and they did not let him get his costume until halfway through the last episode.
Right.
And to me that would be sort of a similar thing, but just on the flip side.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Patsy Walker, or Trish Walker, I mean, as they call her in the show. What did you guys think of her character?
I fell in love with her so much. I was like, I wasn't too familiar with Rachel Taylor before she got this role, but when I saw her, I was like, this must be like one of the greatest, female dynamics I've ever seen, but also two of the greatest character dynamic too. So if we're taking just gender away from it, because she was never the sidekick. She was never the superior. They were. Even though the show is about Jessica, I felt that these two were on equal ground all the time, and that she was never like, "Okay, Jessica, I will do as you say." She did it a few times, but she would, she would say, "No, Jessica, I won't do that. I'm not going to do that for you," and so on. And she would oppose her.
Yeah, I thought that was a great dynamic. She gave just as good as she got. They acted like sisters.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good.
It's kind of Kara and Alex on Supergirl, if you think about it, because Supergirl came out, had just come out like a month before Jessica Jones been released, so kind of seeing those two sibling relationships at the same time. But once again, none of those two dynamics are actually real sisters. They're just like one is adopted and one is also adopted. So seeing that, it was very empowering and so on, because the show kind of became about those two. And like I said, she felt like an equal character to Jessica, because with someone like Foggy or Karen and so on, they were side characters. They never felt like that. They never had anything to do with Matt's story really. But with Trish, there is a bigger background, because her mom, crazy mom. Oh my God, that mother was insane to follow. And her mom and Trish took in Jessica after the accident. So.
Well, and the difference between like Foggy and Karen is that the purpose of their character and their whole story revolves around Daredevil, whereas toward the end of Jessica Jones, Trish had her own story going on, completely separate to Jessica's story, with everything with Frank Simpson and stuff. Yeah, so I think that they purposely made her that strong character to test the public reaction to see if she would carry her own show, which I think she could.
Now, I heard a rumor. Now, I don't know how true this was, but I heard a rumor, and I don't know if you guys heard it or not. The rumor that I heard was that she was originally written into the show to eventually turn into Captain Marvel. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know, but I heard that rumor, and I think the rumor that I heard was that they changed their mind right at the last minute and decided not to go that route.
So you mean for the Netflix version of Jessica Jones or the ABC version? Because you're half right if it comes to the ABC version, because Carol Danvers was supposed to be part of the Jessica Jones version on ABC, but that was in 2011, and now because we're in 2015, and she's getting her own movie, so if you'd heard that rumor for this version of the show, that it was probably just a rumor and never true and so on.
Yeah,
but that would make sense. I could see that happening if they wanted Carol Danvers to be that character instead, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, we're giving her a movie, and then, like, I know they've said that they don't like a lot of crossover between those two for some sort of licensing agreements or something like that, so they're like, well, let's just change the character's name.
Yeah, well, they're gonna cross over at some point. They're all in the same universe, and so we even see that in both of the Netflix shows. I think it's just that they're trying to show that we don't need Captain America to come in every episode to make this relevant. This can be its own thing, which is what kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. had to go through in the first season or two, whatever. S.H.I.E.L.D. has not been able to find its own thing, but I don't. It would have been weird if Trish Walker would have suddenly turned into Captain Marvel, even if there wasn't a film in development.
Right. Well, it wouldn't have been. I'm sure it wouldn't have been Trish Walker that turned to Captain Marvel. It would have been Carol Danvers. They just changed the name once they realized that they couldn't use her or didn't want to use her character.
The rumor that I heard was that they just retooled it before they started shooting.
Yeah, that could be. Well, I think pulling Trish Walker in is great. She is hugely underused in the comics, and now because of the show, she has her own book back, so that's good.
Yeah, and she is also a superhero, so who knows? Maybe season 2 will feature her becoming Hellcat.
Yep, could be. Yeah, I just thought it was such an interesting combination to have, like you said, Andy, one of the best just friendship dynamics in these superhero shows that we've seen, because they don't usually focus too heavily on that. It's either romantic relationships, but not heavy friendship relationships. So this was a really good one. So would you want to move on to who else do we have in the list here? Frank.
I want to talk about Luke Cage, please.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Luke Cage.
Okay, I'm just gonna give a heads up now, and this will probably happen even when we're not talking about Luke Cage. And he became my new bae of Marvel, because, like, first of all, when Paul, when you were referencing that we saw a lot of Luke Cage, we didn't see a lot of Luke Cage. I'm like, dude, we did see a lot of Luke Cage, and boy, does he look good. But also, I love Luke Cage. Even I haven't read that many of the comics, so I saw him. It is a guilty pleasure show, but I do watch Ultimate Spider-Man every once in a while, and I do like Luke Cage a little bit, but also seeing him in video games and stuff like that. So knowing that Luke Cage was going to be part of Jessica Jones, I was super stoked for that. Also, diversity, so that's really awesome. So,
yeah.
And Mike Coulter, I was disappointed he wasn't in it as much as I'd hoped. I was hoping for at least maybe 5 or 6 solid long episodes, but he was kind of like in and there, and then he came back in the end, and he got brainwashed, and and look, as sexy as it is to see a big man fight people, I was like, but come on, they had a great scene together, and then it was all for nothing. But I really,
well, I'm certain that he'll be back in season 2. Absolutely, once he has his own adventures in his own show, because Jessica and Luke have a huge history.
Yeah.
Well, see, now that they have started establishing these shows and established the fact that Luke crossed over into this show, I think that we'll probably see maybe a cameo of Jessica in the Luke Cage show.
I hope so.
Possibly even see some cameos of some of these other characters in the next Daredevil season. And I like the way they use Nick Cage. I thought that Luke Cage. I'm sorry, Nick Cage. I like the way they used Luke Cage, because I don't think he was overused. I think it was very well balanced. I think that he had just enough screen time to make you want to see more of him.
If they had given him more screen time, it would have taken away from the Trish Jessica dynamic.
Right.
I mean, I would have preferred more of him than what's the name of
Frank?
No, not Frank.
Simpson.
Yeah, Simpson.
Simpson
was. Yeah, he was the weakest part of Jessica Jones. I was like, oh, can a truck just go hit him already, and no one bring him back for some stupid pill? I will get into that later, but I wish we'd see more of Cage than Simpson, honestly.
Yeah, I agree, and I really liked. I liked Frank Simpson when he first started at the beginning of the series, but yeah, once he kind of went off the deep end, that it removed the reality out of the show for me.
He's a comic character too, right?
Yeah, he's a
but
character.
But they reinvented him pretty much for the show. Sorry.
Well, he's fairly similar. I mean, he still pops the pills like he does in the comics. That's kind of how he gets his powers, and he has his bipolar personality, which is true to the comics as well. So, he's just not a huge character. He goes by the name Nuke.
Yeah,
he goes by the name Nuke, and he's from the Frank Miller era of Daredevil comics from the 80s, and I don't think you see him a whole lot now, except when they need to renew his copyrights. They throw him into a story for a few issues.
Wait, do they really?
He borderlined on almost seeming like he had multiple personalities.
Yeah. I think that's
really kind of weird. Got kind of creepy there for a little while.
No, he was creepy all the time. Like from I'm like, Trish, sweetie, why are you going out with this Gray? Like, it's
well, and we think that he's creepy because of what Kilgrave had put him through, but then we realize he's actually got this huge history with that other organization, and probably his brain has been tested on a million times. So he's actually.
What brain?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, the fact that she would open her door and he would just be sitting in her hallway waiting for her to come out,
Yeah.
To me, that would creep me out, and I'm a guy, so I can imagine how she would feel,
And he was a cop. I'm like, you got people to look out for. Like, don't sit out of this girl's apartment, especially, she's, Trish Walker is a public face. She's a celebrity and so on. I'm like,
But at the same time, I didn't question their relationship. They built it up in a way that it's like, yeah, this guy's nuts, but I can understand like the sympathy that she feels for him, and Maybe there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome going on there.
It started out feeling like that she was actually going to help him get through what he was dealing with.
Yeah.
Until he suddenly just flipped the switch on her and just went nuts, you know.
And then I think she wanted to get out at that point, but she kind of couldn't because he was just always around and kind of violent and a little very scary.
Now, what do you think about the fact that she decided to pop his pills? Do you think that's going to have any bearing on her character later?
I think that'll be the catalyst that turns her into Hellcat, hopefully into season 2. Yeah, she'll probably love the adrenaline rush. You get the sense through the series that she is almost a little jealous of Jessica's powers and what she can do, and jealous that Jessica's not using them for anything. And because Trish is the one who, like, in the flashback, comes up with her superhero name and gives her superhero outfit.
How awesome was that, by the way? Seeing like they really gave us like this suit from the comic, and I'm like, oh my god! It's not an alteration. It's like
it's the exact same one.
The banner was there, and it was the blue crescent. So I'm like, oh my god! And I'm like, I wouldn't say she was jealous. I think she was more disappointed in Jessica for putting her powers to use. I don't think she was ever like, well, I had power, but I think she was like, Jessica, you could do something with these powers, and so I think she would accept whatever Jessica wanted. But like, jealous, maybe that's how you see it, and so, and that's totally fine. I just felt it was more about more disappointment as opposed to jealousy, because she never seemed hostile about it. She just seemed trying to be like, well, come on, you should do it.
Yeah, that could be true. I still think there's a little bit of a longing that she could help out in the same way that Jessica can help out. And she does that in the form of her talk show. She reaches out and helps people that way, or tries to do good for society. But if she could step it up and have some of those powers, then she'd actually put herself out to do that. And now I feel like now that she's felt that adrenaline rush of the ability to be able to do that, then she'll go back for more.
Now let me ask you this. She is now investigating in secret the organization that supposedly gave Jessica her powers. Do you think that could have let's just put it this way. Do you think that could end in her becoming her own superhero?
No, it doesn't. Helga doesn't have any power in the comics, does she?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I will pull up her wiki and.
Yeah, get back to us on that one. Yeah, I mean,
she has forceful generation. She has psychic senses, and
well, those are powers.
Yeah, those are powers, but IGH. Is this something from the comics? The organization.
I don't know that either. Yeah, you could Google that one as well.
And I remember when I saw the name for the first time, I immediately just hit Google. I'm like, come on, I need to know what the Easter egg is. And it was like, and all it was just articles about that. I'm like, damn it, I don't want to read recaps of that. I just want to see if it's from the comics.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not. I know that Nuke, actually, he was the reason he got his powers and the pills. He was part of the Weapon Plus project that turned Captain America into Captain America, and eventually Wolverine into Wolverine as well. He was part of that, so that's that. They couldn't use. They probably couldn't use Weapon X because that's a Fox property.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they made up their own company. Not a huge deal to me, but yeah, I think as far as Nuke is concerned, if we never see him again, I'd be happy. If we do see him again, it'll have to be as a villain because I don't think we could tolerate him any other way. Really.
Yeah, I don't need him back either. He can go and do. I don't know, I just don't feel like we need him back. I think we could replace him with maybe another awesome female character in the next season.
Yeah, well, and I did like him when he was a fully functioning part of the team. When it was Jessica, Trish, and Simpson working together to try and find Kilgrave, like I thought that was great. The dynamic was really nice. So. But then he just went nuts, and that he lost me there. So let's talk about maybe how does this this show compare to Daredevil? And yeah, just how does it compare to Daredevil? How's it for a Netflix show?
Well, the tone was definitely different.
Yeah, well, it was still both like dark and moody.
Right.
That's what you mean.
But this one, it just had a different feel to it. The overall feel was just different. And it's one of those things you can't necessarily put your finger on how it was different, but you just know it was different.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And I think the biggest part of it was because it wasn't as violent, I guess. It was violent in a different way. It wasn't.
The Kilgrave stuff was probably the most violent in this.
Yeah, but I think the violence in Daredevil gave it that overarching tone of the show. I mean, especially because his dad comes from a fighting background, and so that really set the mood and the environment for the characters. Whereas Jessica Jones is not set in that. That stuff does happen, but it's not set.
I will say this much. I think that in Daredevil, as much as they tried to make it more ambiguous as far as right, wrong, good, bad, that kind of thing, there was still a feeling of this is the light side, this is the dark side, and they're at odds with one another. And Jessica Jones, there was a lot more, in my mind, moral ambiguity. As far as what was and was not morally acceptable choices and stuff.
Right, even from the good guys and the bad guys.
Right. And so I will say that affected the tone as well,
The biggest difference I noticed between the two shows is that, and this kind of goes in a little bit with what they would initially pitching us of these 4 Netflix shows, was that this was going to be the more street level type of Marvel heroes that we would see. But with Daredevil, I always thought, because he had been trained, he'd been going through all this, fighting moves and stuff like that. It never felt like a street hero to me. It just felt like, it was an advanced hero just living in Hell's Kitchen. But with Jessica Jones, she was not like a professional boxer or fighter or something. Like, she just fought the way she could fight. And the same with Luke Cage, and because he's so big and strong, he could just, he's more reliant on just throwing around people and so on, because nothing can really hurt him. So with Jessica Jones, it felt like they really lived up to the street level thing, but with Daredevil, it still felt more of that city feel that, that we're saving something more than just ourselves. It's more about everything else.
But I think for street level, I think that kind of means that they're fighting gangsters and that kind of thing, rather than aliens and giant robots. Yeah. And that's what Daredevil did.
Yeah, it just felt like, in terms of, when I look at both, I would look at an episode of Daredevil when they're fighting, and I would look at an episode when Jessica's fighting, and so on. It still feels like Jessica felt more, I guess, more real, because her moves were a little more clumsy as well, and so on. But she, even if she would win, she wouldn't be able to, she would not be able to pull off like the hallway scene from Daredevil and so on, fighting like 16 guys in just, in a very tight space. And she would probably have to throw people through walls, stuff like that, kind of create a more bigger environment and so on, if that makes sense. But but to me, it just felt that Jessica felt more of a real street level. But maybe it's just me having a different view on what street level really defines, as opposed to these two heroes.
He said he wants this street stuff to be street.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I think you have a good point. I mean, Daredevil's such a different character, and his moves are like ballet, and I think that's because they want to try and emphasize that he uses his other senses to compensate for that. Whereas Jessica, she's just brute force. That's all she is.
Well, not only that, he also tried to copy his father too, as far as fighting style and things like that.
Right.
And boxers have to be more fluid in movement and things like that.
Yep, that does make sense. Yeah, and Jessica just doesn't have that training. She's
Jessica just grabs something and beats you with it.
Yeah.
Stop sign. Oh, wait a minute. Here, bang.
Yeah, Trish on the other hand, she had a training in them, because we kept seeing her, she was getting self-defense class and stuff like that. So she was able to have more of kind of like a flowy moves her stuff and so on. And it kind of gives me a good hint of like that Luke Cage, the way he will fight in his show will probably be similar to Jessica Jones, while Iron Fist will probably be a little bit similar to Daredevil and so on.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. What are your predictions for the next season of Jessica Jones?
Well, you can try to think.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because this is such a self-contained story that is so heavily involved in her own past and her own issues, self-issues, that now that has been resolved, where does the character go from there? That's going to be just as compelling next season as it is this season.
Something that they could do is they could put Trish in peril in the fact that she gets into hot water with her investigations and stuff, with the stuff that she's doing behind Jessica's back, and then she ends up having to bail her out at some point. They could play that card.
And bring Luke into it to help out. The both of them get together to save Trish.
And the thing is, too, like I said, if they want to, they could use that investigation to have something happen to her that alters her the same way Jessica was altered, but in a different way, and then she does become Hellcat,
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they went in that direction, they could bring back Simpson, because Simpson still cares about her a great deal, and then there would be like Simpson will do anything, whether it's right or wrong, to get her back, and Jessica has to try and stop him or something like that.
Simpson is just as obsessed with her as Kilgrave was of Jessica.
Right. Yeah.
So
except he doesn't have the power
there.
He has a different way of controlling Trish, than mind control. It's interesting that you make that parallel.
Well, he controls her through fear.
Yeah.
Because even though she does know how to protect herself and stuff, he still has the ability to get in her head and to control her through fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good parallel.
The bigger question is also like, who will they get as a villain? Because just looking at her Wikipedia page and stuff like that, it's like on Wikipedia, her most three prominent villains are Norman Osborn, Purple Man, and Typhoid Mary or something.
What about the Rose?
The what?
What about the Rose?
The Rose would be that's Kingpin's son.
Yeah.
They could bring the Rose into the picture, and Typhoid Mary is a Daredevil villain, so they could share that in the Netflix.
They've not indicated that Kingpin doesn't have a past relationship where he could have had a son. They've left all of that blank. They haven't given any of that information.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Rose Vanessa and Kingpin's son?
It is in the comics, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, because if he has other kids, that means that in the show it probably would have to be that he has a kid with someone else before him and Vanessa. Because
it would have to be an adult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it would at least have to be 18 to 20.
Well, that's an adult, right?
Well, technically, but some people you wonder, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, because if you look at that, for example, something like Daredevil season 2, we know that Punisher will be a villain and so on, but we don't. But there could be something else coming up, like another big bad in Daredevil season 2. But with Jessica Jones, I'm wondering if I'm looking forward to see what they do with Jessica Jones season 2. But the one thing I'm wondering is what kind of villain could they get that can either be on par with Kilgrave or surpass him, because he put the bars up really high.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and especially because he's so connected to Jessica Jones personally. Like any other villain that comes in may not have, if they don't have a personal connection to Jessica, then it's not going to be the same sort of dynamic.
Do you remember the name of the organization that Trish was investigating?
IGH.
IGH.
Is that in the comics at all?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, and apparently it isn't.
What if they tie it in with Hammer?
Yeah, maybe bring him back. That'd be great.
If they tied it in with Hammer, then they could bring in other characters that he has genetically manipulated and things like that.
Oh, so we're not talking about the Hammer, the organization?
Yeah, from Iron Man 2.
Yeah, because I remember also Hammer. I don't even know if Hammer does exist anymore, so because Hammer was actually referenced in Shield in the seventh episode in season 1. There's a sign, when they're walking by all the divisions, and there's a sign that says Hammer, towards the left or something. But since Shield was infiltrated by Hydra, and Shield is, at least the official Shield is now no more, I wonder if Hammer actually exists at all. Like, it would be interesting if IGH was actually AIM instead of, like, if it was a code name and they didn't want to reveal it too soon. If they didn't know if we were going to get a second season or something.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense too. I just would I'd love to see Hammer come back because he was one of the best things about Iron Man 2. So that'd be great.
Justin. Okay, so we're not talking about the organization. We're talking about Justin Hammer.
Well, and his organization, Hammer Industries.
I was talking about Hammer, the Shield division, like Hammer as in H.A.M.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
we're talking about the scientist.
Yeah, I didn't like just Hammer in that movie, so I kind of just suppressed him in my memory. I'm like, I don't.
You didn't like him? Oh, he was the best part of that movie.
He's like an annoying version of Chris Hardwick, and I love Chris Hardwick, but this was like just seeing an annoying version of him. I'm like, no.
Maybe I guess I'm a big Sam Rockwell fan, so I'd love to see him come back anyway.
We know he was in the same prison as that Luke Cage went to in that the Iron Man free one shot.
Luke Cage was in that.
And Luke Cage, I don't know if he was at the same prison if he was in the prison at the same time as Ben Kingsley's character, but it's the same prison that he went to when he was sentenced for a crime that he didn't commit.
Oh, they call it by name in the show. Oh, okay.
In the one shot, yeah.
Well, then totally, let's bring him back. That'd be great.
But I'm just, whether they get a good villain or not, I'm just excited to see a second season of Jessica Jones because it would have been disappointing if Jessica had been the only show that did not get a future season. But then Luke Cage gets more season, and Iron Fist gets more season, and Daryl gets a new season. Just talks about a Punisher spinoff. I'm like, well, look at this giant sausage fest.
Yeah, it's true. It's really nice that they had that representation, and it was very well done. It's like they played it up so well. They wrote the characters really smart. The female roles.
And well, I don't know if I felt about it with Jerry Hogarth or whatever his last name is, who Carrie Ann Moss played, the lawyer. Oh
yeah. We haven't really talked about her at all. You don't think that her character was written well?
I didn't. As someone who is part of the LGBT, I didn't know how to respond to seeing, one of the first prominent LGBT characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of, openly gay characters in the MCU so far, and the first one we get that is such a prominent role is not only is she cheating, but she also gets a girl who saves her life when her wife gets, killgraved. I'm in a term that's good. Killgraved. She got killgraved. I'm going to use it from now on. And she saves her from Jerry's wife. And then Jerry does nothing to get her out of prison. She's like, you did this for yourself. And I'm like, and this is supposed to be someone that we might see on Iron Fist. Great.
Yeah. There's more to her character for sure. But I thought that. Yeah, I started out not liking her, but then by the end of the series, like she I don't know. I ended up really liking her because just of how messed up her thought process is, and how how selfish she was in her own way. I mean, she reflected the same sort of selfishness as Jessica Jones, except she decided to go in a different direction with how she treated other people, right?
Yeah, she continued to get more and more selfish.
Yeah, and I thought it was a nice counterpoint because those two seem to work together so closely. So to see, and they both were selfish to each other. It was a weird friendship because they didn't really want to help out each other.
Well, see, then you also had the contradiction, or not contradiction, but the comparison too of Jessica seeming like this, mean, kind of distant person on the outside, but being kind under the surface, hiding it from everybody else. and then she put on this face of being this kind, person and everything on the outside, but underneath she was just kind of hollow and, I thought that was neat.
Yeah, and going back to your comment, Andy, about the first kind of openly gay character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like and it being kind of a sleazebag character. I thought that was kind of a bold move for them to make that character a sleazebag character instead of giving it the normal sort of treatment that gay characters seem to get in TV and movies these days as well.
Yeah, I can understand. On one hand, I can also kind of see, well, it's good that she's being treated as, just because you're gay doesn't mean that, you can't be a shady character and so on. I like it that, whether you're gay or straight or bisexual or something like that, anyone can be shady, corrupted, or evil and so on. I like that aspect and so on. But for me, it's like, because there's been so few of them, because they had Victoria had on S.H.I.E.L.D., but because it's on ABC, and ABC, it's like
it's still a family channel, yeah.
Exactly, and it's like so they never really acknowledged it. They kind of made a sub reference to it, and then they killed her off, and then Lucy Lawless character on S.H.I.E.L.D., she was in it for one episode and she got killed off, and then there hasn't been any other gay characters. Hey, I'm still wondering if Agent Carter is actually going to dare to go, because of the time period it's in, if you're actually going to go and see, someone that is closeted in that time. But I doubt they will, because I don't think they will. So that's why I was kind of like, even if they're treating her like any other character would be, despite of her sexuality and so on, I wish that, because she is one of the first, this is the first series regular. And
I was feeling sort of the same way as Kurtis. I like the fact that Marvel is taking the stance of, we're not afraid to treat every character as if they can be whatever, regardless of color, race, creed, sexuality, whatever. We're not letting that define who we put in certain positions in our stories. I think that's something that says a lot to me. It says a lot to me that we don't have to stereotype somebody because of this or because of that. We're going to treat everybody the same as far as how we treat them in a story.
And I totally agree with that. It's just the fact that for me, and maybe it's because I am bisexual, so maybe I kind of just would have appreciated that. Okay, you can do it with future characters and so on, other future LGBT series regular and so on, but for your first one and someone that is going to be such a big part of Iron Fist, supposedly, it would have been, okay, they could have done that, but all at the end kind of shown some redemption for her, but in the end she just ended up being a dickhole. Sacrificing this poor sister's life and being like, yeah, you killed my wife, I don't, the divorce element doesn't have to be dealt with now, and she wouldn't even try and get her out, and that's kind of why I'm like, okay, this is our character now, I'm not going to be able to get behind that. But
with the way things went down at the end of the season, though, they could be steering her in a different direction for season 2, because Jessica could start rubbing off on her. Like I say, they like to play the long game with these characters. I mean, you watch Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
You see what they did with Kingpin, right?
Yeah. Well, he's a different animal though. He is supposed to be a bad guy. Jerry Hogarth, or whoever he is in the comic book. I know they gender bend and his character is supposed to be like a good supporting person and so on. But this was kind of like seeing, a very, very serious but still good lawyer end up being just as kind of dark as as Jessica and so on, but she went even far worse and so on. But that, like I said, I agree with you guys saying that, that they're giving the same treatment as any other character, but to me, I just wished for their first prominent LGBT character that it could have just been, they would not have to think about it. Plus, there was so many plots going on. I was like, do we really care about her cheating on her wife out of the sudden and just being...
Right, and that's the biggest thing, is that I felt that story was a little bit extraneous. They didn't really need to have it. I thought that Matt Murdock was going to pop in because she was talking to lawyers, but then he didn't, and so I was like, oh, I guess these characters actually have a purpose. But yeah, the story I could have gone and we wouldn't have wouldn't have made really any difference
Well,
to us.
it did give a little bit of a subplot, though, as far as with Jessica, because she kept pushing Jessica to do things that she didn't feel were morally right, you know, and she was taking the side of the wife who she's trying to, you know, abandon, basically, instead of taking the side of her friend, because she doesn't feel like that she's asking her to do good things, you know. And it gave me a little bit more depth of who Jessica was, because Jessica wasn't willing to just do whatever she was asked to do just because it might benefit her financially or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see where they go. Yeah, I agree with you, Andy. I think that if Marvel decides to put in another gay character of some sort in there, that they'll have it would be nice to see them be the good guys instead. Because because what kind of, like, are they gonna you know, quote unquote vilify all the gay characters in Marvel shows if they do that? And I certainly hope not.
Like, and especially when it's very rare for a gay character to be a series regular that was, you know, like, that is, you know, one of the main stars and so on. Like, you know, with Victoria Han on S.H.I.E.L.D., she was only a guest actor for a few episodes, and she got killed off. But even she had her, you know, she had her rough side, but she did what she did for the sake of good. Jerry just did what she did because she was like, well, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to have got my hands dirty and so on.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you have at least you have Mr. Terrific in Flash. There you go.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see more. He hasn't been on in the last.
I know that I've been missing his character. I hope he shows up now that Legends of Tomorrow is kind of out of the way. But, well, we've kind of gone through the whole thing. Does anyone else have? One thing we didn't talk about was the little night nurse cameo. The one thing that kind of that brought Daredevil and Jessica Jones together.
Yeah, and she even referenced Daredevil in the episode.
Yeah, not by name, which I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of like, but you're in the same universe. For once, you don't have to be like, you know, well, let's pretend that he's not a mutant or anything. But no, but I was glad to see Rosario Dawson for her, and it wasn't just a cameo. It was a good. She was in it for a long bit of it, and they kind of. I know she's going to be on Luke Cage, and hopefully more episodes on Luke Cage there and so on. But no, I just love Rosario Dawson. So, like, whenever she's on, like, she's always killing it, and I like that she and Jessica kind of they butted head, but they kind of connected pretty quickly. So, yeah, no, that was good.
Yeah, I'm hoping that in season 2 we see a night nurse Hellcat team up. Or, like, because those are two of those two characters predate the Marvel universe. They're way older than the Fantastic Four. So it's like to get both of them in the same show, teaming up would be something quite special.
No, it may just be me, but I kind of noticed a little bit of chemistry between Malcolm and the nurse there at the end of it. You know, they seem to, you know, they seem to kind of gel pretty well together, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I didn't notice that. We'll have to see what happens there. But yeah,
I like Malcolm, by the way, a lot. Like, we didn't talk much about him either, and he was a very good character. So they he started in a very rough place, but then he got out of it, and instead of like just sitting around for 7 episodes, being like, you know, I don't know what to do, so he went right back into trying to help people.
Yeah, he went through one of the most drastic changes of everybody, probably because he was mind controlled before. But
no, correct me if I'm wrong, but he answered her phone at the end of it, right? Alias Investigations.
Oh, did he?
I believe he answered her phone when her phone started ringing. I think he picked up her phone and said Alias Investigations, and then it goes black. You know,
I know he was in the same room as her when the phone started ringing, but that's most likely what happened, and that means probably he's going to be working with her.
I think it would be interesting to see him become part of Alias Investigations in some way.
Yeah, and he already was. I mean, he watched Jessica's back the whole time, so he was very much part of what she was doing the whole time in season 1. I don't think that we'll see a romance between him and the nurse, because I think I don't think Night Nurse is being tied down to any one particular show.
Right.
Except maybe Daredevil, but even still, not that much.
I think she's going to be more towards Luke Cage, because Night Nurse and Luke Cage did have a romance in the comics and so on. I don't know, it's interesting because as much as I love Rosario Dawson and Claire Temple, I'm wondering what her place is within all these forces. Is she just here to do cameos, kind of be like, look, we're in the same franchise, or is she supposed to have a lot of role towards when we get to Defenders and so on? Because it's a waste of talent if you don't do anything with her other than just be like, be the Stan Lee basically of the Netflix shows.
Yeah, right. Well, I see her as like the Leslie Tompkins in Batman. Because Batman can't go to a hospital, so he goes to her to get fixed up, and so that's the role she plays to the street level characters, because they don't have an Avengers Tower to retreat to, right? So, and then at the same time, just like Leslie Tompkins does, she imparts her little words of wisdom that help the hero on their journey. I think she'll play that role a lot.
She might also play kind of a Coulson role in a way of kind of like not being an agent that puts together the team, but she kind of being the connecting, the glue of these shows. Kind of like, maybe she's kind of what brings them together in some way.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. She will be the tie between all of them, I'm sure.
Okay, just a little side thing. Am I the only one who got freaked out when she stuck that needle in his eye?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I'm just gonna look away and just wait for this to say that it's done or something, and I'm like, oh, looks too early.
There's a very famous comic from back in I think it's the early 50s, maybe it's the late 40s, mid 40s or something, but it's called Murder, Morphine, and Me, and it's it's one of the I don't know, maybe an EC style horror story comic, and the iconic movement is that a guy injects heroin through a girl's eyeball. And this was it was an iconic moment because it's one of the things that spurred on the comic code, because it was such a graphic, violent scene that parent groups were all up in arms and everything, and everybody was like, we got to get something done about these horrible comics. So the comic code kind of got formed and put in place, and that one scene was part of that. And Alias has an interesting place in Marvel history because it's one of the very first comics that was targeted to the very mature adult crowd, one that was specifically not going to follow the comic code and have like basically an R rating to it. It really did change the face of the way comics were written from then on out, and so to have the Alias Netflix show, which Netflix is also a game changer with its shows and the kind of stuff that they show in there, to put that scene with the needle in the eyeball, I think was I don't know if it was an intentional nod, but I can see the connection in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and she says, if you puke, he's dead,
Oh, it was so good, yep.
And I'm thinking, I'm going to puke,
Don't do it for Luke's sake.
Yeah, that just made my skin crawl. I don't like needles. Well, I don't like long, big needles anyway,
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. There were a few pretty intense, gory moments in Jessica Jones. I was actually surprised at, like that poor guy in the apartment when they come into him, and he's like, he's gonna like stick his hand in the blender, and then the guy who saws his other arm, the guy who sawed his arm off or something like that. Yeah, there were some pretty intense moments in that show.
Yeah, his dad laying there with no arms because they sawed his arms off while he was still alive.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
That was messed up.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the Kilgrave backstory, by the way? Did you like it?
The Kilgrave factor?
Wait, no, I said the Kilgrave backstory, but if I said the factor...
Oh, the backstory.
I don't get what was so funny with the factor part.
The factor. I love it. They should have upped the Kilgrave factor in that show.
I think they already did.
Yeah, they sure did. No, the backstory was great. Like that was I felt like it started off very kind of X-Files-ish in the way they were telling his backstory, with just the children being experimented on, but then like to have, because I don't know if they explained it in the comics. Purple Man's just an evil guy in the comics, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know how much of the backstory they've told there, but he just does evil things for the sake of being evil. So to have him have a backstory and understand his motivations and the reasons why he's being bad, it definitely changes the character and gives you a little bit of sympathy. And they did the same with Kingpin. They did exactly the same thing. Gave him that same tragic backstory that made us kind of sympathetic for the way he turned out.
And the thing that I like about it, though, is the fact that they take their time to turn these characters into the characters that we recognize using the long game. You know, they don't just bring them in automatically being 100% recognizable as to what we've known for the last 40 years or whatever.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And they give them a lot of depth. They don't. They're like onions. There's layer upon layer upon layer, you know, as opposed to just having a shallow, you know, figure of a character, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In the comics, isn't Kilgrave? Isn't he an alien or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if he's an alien. He wasn't. Yeah, I recently was reading some early issues of Daredevil with him in it, and I don't think they didn't say he was an alien in that. But I don't know. They could have made that up in the 60 years of his existence.
Yeah, no, I like the backstory too, and so on. And that even though his parents, a part of me kept wondering, you know, did the parents actually tell the truth? That they were actually trying to save him, or were they actually just, you know, just trying to get out of it as well, and so on? But it was. That whole episode when he was in that cage that's one of the best episodes of the season.
Yeah, it was really good.
Because he just kept being like, you know, oh, I can't hear you. I can put you on mute and unmute you whenever I want. And yeah, but that's also where my interest for Jerry started to kind of fade away, because she's like, oh, she's getting tempted and so on. And yeah, I was like, oh, damn it. And I was almost worried they were going to kill off Trish twice. The first time being Kilgrave said, you know, put a bullet in your head, and luckily the gun had just run out of bullets. I'm like, oh god, thank you. And then she popped the pill. I'm like, if they kill her off, I'm gonna have such a big issue on Twitter after this, because that's how much I love Trish and so on. I was like, you just get rid of Nuke or Daddy or the annoying neighbor she had. What was the redhead?
Oh yeah, I don't remember their names. The brother sister combo.
Yeah.
The crazy twins.
Yeah.
They were probably doing each other, but I don't.
I think that is what they were implying.
I wondered about that, but you know, I didn't let my mind go there.
Yeah, no, I was just focusing on just watching a good show, not wondering whether or not a brother or sister were doing each other, or if the sister was fooling the brother too. Because, and I was like, I was so disappointed. I'm like, Kilgrave, if I. Look, listen to that mouth. You need to kill her off. Like, you could have just said, hey, you just go just walk in the street, you know, till a car hits you, and then. Yeah. But yeah, I was wrong. She gets to live.
Yeah, well, the thing about this show is that they don't kill the characters that you want to die. They only
kill the ones that we want. Like, for example, the detective that just to get bonded with and so on. I like them, but I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Now, were you okay with that they killed off Kilgrave, or do you feel that they should have kept him for future seasons, even though he is kind of hard to contain?
I think that it was a smart move. That was the only way that I think that Jessica was going to get any sort of closure on her story. And since they didn't know that this was going to go to a second season, they kind of needed to do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not upset. I think that it's fine. If we never see him again, I'll be perfectly fine, because it was such a well-told story the first time around.
There's some speculation online that IGH might in some way be loosely tied in with Dr. Jekyll from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting. That would be kind of a good way to bring him in, especially because they kind of gave him a reset button after the end of season 2. They kind of wiped it, they used it to he on him, so they could bring him back and kind of bring back his memory and be like, hey, do some great stuff, and But yeah, hey, how awesome would it be to see Kyle MacLachlan on a Netflix show?
I think
Yeah.
it would be kind of nice to see some crossover also not only with other Netflix shows but also with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that. I mean, they are the same universe.
And,
Yeah.
and the ABC Studios is part of distributing and producing those shows. I'm like, it's stupidly weird how they're kind of like being, well, it's a schedule issue. But I'm like, BS. You guys can you do like you guys shoot extra stuff all the time for your movies and so on.
There's a specific reason why ABC got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's because they're both owned by Disney. So
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
yeah, ABC is owned by Disney. So
Yeah, all the Marvel shows are on ABC. Yeah. Well, I think we'll get there eventually. But I don't know if anything, it'll just be a fleeting cameo or something like that. I don't think that we'll see any major crossovers, and I think basically because Marvel likes to, like, they're so particular with the order in which all of these are being aired.
Yeah.
And you don't get an order with the Netflix shows. So that
Yeah, they just assume what it's going to be. Like, say we're assuming that Jessica Jones is happening, like the things that happened to her, which kind of like maybe just like a month after what happened to Daredevil and so on. Or the reason they don't meet each other at all for the first time is because they're all doing all these things at the same time, except for Luke Cage, because Luke Cage kind of, he got that sense of like, well, I'm going to go do something else.
Do you think Luke Cage's show is going to be during that little gap between, like, when he left, because he left to do something, go somewhere, and then he came back? Would his show, you think, take place in that? Like, what was Luke Cage up to at this time?
I didn't think about that. That could be interesting.
But Luke Cage would act. Luke Cage, the show, would act as like a prequel before he went to Jessica Jones.
No, it would be because in Jessica Jones he leaves. Like they meet, and then he has to. When he finds out about what Jessica did to his wife, he leaves. He goes away and goes somewhere else, like to Florida or wherever. I can't remember what he said. He named a state that he went to, and then he came back and his bar exploded. So what happened in that time that he left? Maybe the show is that time that he was gone.
Maybe you could watch it in the middle of Jessica Jones and it would
He's
get together.
he's actually going to be in New York as well. He's going to actually be in Harlem.
Oh, Harlem. Yeah, that's right. That's where he went. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when they announced the show, they said that all these shows were going to take place in New York City, within certain districts and stuff like that. So, it's a good question because we still don't know much. I think they just wrapped filming, so hopefully a trailer will come out soon.
When is that show supposed to be on?
See, that's the thing. This week was pretty interesting because there was a lot of things going on with the series premiere day. Jessica Jones' official Twitter account, they tweeted a photo of like folders. And there's a folder that says Cage-November. So everyone kept thinking, oh, it's going to be in the fall. It's going to be in November. But then there was some rumors saying that it could be coming this summer.
Okay. That would be good.
Yeah, sooner than later. That's better for me because I love Luke Cage.
No,
Sorry, I had to take
you were talking about time frames. And I know in Daredevil, we got an indication of when that series happened in the timeline because it was during the rebuilding after the end.
Yeah,
of
they make a
Avengers,
reference to New York. Yeah.
I didn't see anything in this that would indicate whether or not this would be following the Daredevil timeline or if this would be crossing over the Daredevil timeline.
It's definitely following Daredevil. It's definitely following Daredevil because Night Nurse knows Daredevil already.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, what I'm saying is this. What if the end of the Daredevil series and the beginning of this series actually cross each other? I mean, what if they're that close together?
Yeah, that's possible.
We don't really truly get any indication one way or the other. I think it would have been nice to have gotten like a little Easter egg or something, maybe in the first episode or something, where you see like a TV in the background or something, and you see the events going down with the capture of Kingpin or something like that.
Right.
That would have been a nice little Easter egg to kind of tell you, hey, this is happening now. That's just my opinion.
And I totally get that.
Maybe there was one and we just didn't see it.
Maybe we should go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Well, it's on Netflix, so it's just like just press play and just like.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah, they're going to keep this on Netflix. They're not going to keep Doctor Who on Netflix, but they're going to keep this on Netflix.
Well, yeah, this is a Netflix original. Those poor Doctor Who fans.
I'm sorry. I'm just a little butthurt.
No, it's alright. It is odd that they're doing this, and but who knows? It could come back. I think it's more about deals being renewed and stuff like that. That has to happen. So.
Well, I'm the only reason I'm even bothered by it is because from a podcasting point of view, it makes it more difficult for listeners to be able to watch the stuff that you're talking about.
Right, that's true.
So,
yep.
But
yeah, that's a lot of content that they're taking off.
Yeah.
Netflix.
But we're talking about Jessica Jones. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well,
it's your own podcast. Come on.
Lieutenant was a doctor, so it's all connected.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, I like the way you think.
Yeah. And so that's probably Marvel if they see this video. Like, he's using our brand. That's good.
Well, I don't know. I think this has been an hour and a half, so we can probably wrap things up now. We've had a very good conversation about Jessica Jones.
It's been fun.
Yeah, and so we will. I know Paul and I will definitely be back for the next Netflix show because now it's officially a tradition, right?
Yes.
Andy, you're more than welcome to join us again. We had a great time talking to you today.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So, which is the next Netflix show coming out? Is it
Daredevil Season 2?
Daredevil Season 2. Okay, so we will watch Daredevil Season 2, and then we'll have hopefully the month after that, we'll do the roundtable for that one. That'll be great.
So they're squeezing Daredevil Season 2 in before Luke Cage, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I would call it squeezing it in because, I don't think...
They're all separate productions.
It wasn't. Let me rephrase. It wasn't part of the original timeline that they originally put out.
Right.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
In that case, then yes.
But I think maybe they already had like a season 2 plan for it. So I think by the time when they got renewed for season 2, they had probably already known for like weeks that they renewed and so on. And just saying, the same interviews like, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll get renewed. And then it's like, I'm going back to work in just a day or something.
I just think, I love living in a world where stuff that I used to get laughed at for being into 25, 30 years ago, I can now sit here and say that stuff is the most watched stuff on Netflix.
It's so true.
The nerds are taking over the world. So if you're mocking us nerds, then I wouldn't want to be in your position. I'm just saying.
And I am the oldest man in the room. I'm not ashamed to say that.
Whatever. That's fine. We're all kids at heart, I guess.
Yeah. 42. You'll get there eventually.
I'm not that far behind. 30.
I'm 22, so I'm the youngest, I guess.
Yep, you're a young guy. You were.
Here comes the train.
Yep.
Jason and I have to cut around that every time we record. You hear it out the window?
We hear it. We all
hear it. It's okay. There's been like kids screaming on my end and that kind of stuff too, so that's fine. We're all good. Well, let's wrap it up. We can give one last shout out for our own podcast, and then we'll sign off. Andy, do you want to start?
Yeah, and I do the Flash Podcast on theflashpodcast.com, and it's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on iTunes and all that. And if people want to follow me on Twitter and see my other projects that I do, and they can follow me at Andrew Bacht.
Paul?
Yeah, look for me on Talking Time Lords. You can find us on our TARDIS on the internet at talkingtimelords.com. And you can search for us on Facebook under Talking Time Lords, and on Twitter, we are at Talking Time Lord. There's no S because Twitter would not allow us to have enough characters.
Oh no.
Yeah.
There's only one doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm part of the Pullbox Podcast. You can check us out at pullboxpodcast.com or at Pullbox Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those nice things. And this coming month is going to be Scott Pilgrim month for us. We got 3 episodes talking about all 6 volumes plus the movie. So check out Scott Pilgrim month at Pullbox Podcast. So there you go. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we hope that you'll be back next month. Does anyone remember what we're talking about in the next roundtable? I can quickly look it up here.
Mike put out a list.
He did put out a list.
Yeah. In the meantime, I can remind people that are watching this that to make sure to check out all the other great podcasts on ThunderQuack.com with the podcasts and all the Star Wars podcasts that are there, and X-Files is back. It's definitely a good time to check out Double X-Files podcast, and there's Talking Timer and stuff like Pullbox. So if you want to listen to a great podcast network, ThunderQuack.com is where to go to, and we're on Twitter at ThunderQuackNet, I believe, and then on Facebook on ThunderQuack.
And don't be afraid to tell your friends about us.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they want to throw a couple of bucks our way through our Patreon site.
Exactly.
No problem with that as well. That just helps us pay for our hosting issues and all that kind of stuff. So I looked it up.
Because we're all awesome, right?
Yeah. The next roundtable in February, at the end of February, is going to be Conspiracy Theories, hosted by Mike, and also Courtney and Allison of the Double X-Files, which I'm sure they're having a ball with the new X-Files show that's out now. But yeah, we'll see you back in February. So long, everybody.